Welcome back, everybody, to episode 182 of the Lookout Podcast. We are back here on the lookout, up on the lookout, BB. We were sailing the seas over the summer on, I guess, what was it called? The Thousand Sunny now? It's definitely the Thousand Sunny.
Yeah. We were boat boys. Little boat.
We sure were. I stopped off at Thriller Bark, and you went way further than that, apparently.
Oh yeah, no, I'm literally in a whole new year.
Yeah, you're different.
I'm different, bro. I'm built different. I was slightly wilding. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
I think you do, but you do this all the time. Like, I tell you, hey, we're gonna do this arc of Naruto. Just read this arc of Naruto, and then suddenly you're watching the entirety of Naruto. Or I tell you, hey, we're only doing these episodes of Dragon Ball Z for our top 25. And you're like, I've been watching the entire Cell Saga. Here's my thoughts on it. And I was just like, you know what? I enjoy it. I love that you love to get the context. Even today, right? Like, just right before we record this, I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about the end of Jujutsu Kaisen. He's like, I read the last 75 chapters of it. I was like, all right. You know what? I can't even be mad.
You make me sound crazy. I just be wondering. I'm not. Full context. That's it. That's all I search for. All I search for is full context.
We're gonna need context to talk about this because I got questions.
Yeah.
This episode we were going to be talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. It has officially ended in the manga. It is an incredible. Like, this was announced to be ending. I think right when we were going off air for the lookout earlier, or actually a little bit afterwards. And it wasn't until we did the recap episode of Anime NYC.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we did that episode that we could really talk about it, but we're going to talk about that episode, but we got some other things that we need to talk about. This is some clearance stuff because we're officially back, and shout out to that. And if you've been tapped in, subscribe. You've also been listening to the Plug and Play podcast with AD and Jay. So make sure you tune into that because they're going over a number of Dragon Ball video games up to the release of Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, the brand new game, the brand new entry in the Budokai Tenkaichi universe that people are super, super excited for. A lot of people are excited for this, actually. Like, people who haven't even watched Dragon Ball are excited for this. I think
this Sparking Zero might be probably one of the most anticipated anime video games I've probably been alive for.
Is there a different? I'm trying to think, what would be a great anime video game? I think if they made more anime video games, people would be more into it.
I think the issue with anime video games is that they all end up being fighting games.
Yeah, I mean, so the default is fighting games because I guess there's I
think One Piece does a good job. I mean, their last one is it? I keep wanting to say Odyssey. I could be wrong. Let me look it up.
Is there? I mean, I know that there's fighting games as a default, but I think with the breadth of these stories and everyone getting so attached to it, people want these RPGs. That's what they kind of really want. You got Dragon Ball Z RPGs. You got enough out the wazoo. We just got Dragon Ball Z Kakarot a couple years ago, and that was still being updated up to a year ago, maybe earlier this year. So I think that's what people for. If there was a situation where they could be even a JJK RPG, go through all the arcs, go through all the battles.
I think that's just all people really want from an anime game. They just want the RPG.
They want to be able to relive the story.
Yeah, for sure.
In the game, and you'll be the one to kind of go through that story, and other things can kind of be told for you. But
I'm looking.
Who knows when that'll happen?
I think the next big step is an open world, kind of immersing yourself in the world with your own character kind of anime game.
What anime do you feel would be best to do that?
Hunter x Hunter, low key. You get to go through the Hunter exams with your with your
I know
character.
It's coming back, but I got mixed thoughts on Hunter x Hunter. I've always had mixed thoughts on Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, you've never been the biggest fan. I'll say that.
I think the first half of this, I'm talking about strictly the anime, and maybe even the whole series. I think the first half of the series is great, and then the second half of the series is not as great at all. I think the the what was it, what's that video game arc?
Oh yeah, Greed, is it Greed Island? Like
Greed Island.
Yeah.
I don't think that's great. I don't
No,
think
I don't think it's
I'm
great.
not
I
a
don't
fan of
think,
Chimera Ant arc.
I think Greed Island might be the most forgettable arc of the series. You get introduced to some cool characters, but it's not like anything that sticks out to me.
Right. I don't think I mean, to be honest,
Chimera Ant arc was just too long, and then the narration just gets in the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and actually, it's going to tie into what my critique about JJK is, because I think a lot of things from that Hunter x Hunter thing that people have problems with can kind of be also paralleled in this JJK. However, before we did that, because we're bearing the lead by a lot, I want to welcome everybody back. Thank you guys for tuning in. So I want to give you guys, we're back, but I want to give you guys pretty much a list of things that we're going to be going through over the next couple of weeks / months. And I want to, we'll, of course, this will be tweeted out on the social. You follow us on Instagram as well. So I just want to say, for the next couple of weeks, we'll be back in our current anime bag. And by say current anime bag, I mean the fall 2024 premieres of it all. So next week on this episode, as we're covering JJK this week, next week we will be covering the premiere of Dandadan and also Blue Box, the premiere of Blue Box. So I think we'll do a half special on that. We're very familiar with Blue Box. I have not read a chapter of Dandadan at all.
You need to. No, wait.
Once I knew the anime was coming out, I said, let me wait for this is what I did with JJK, actually. I started reading the manga, and then I was like, I don't really know what the fuck is going on. So let me just wait till the anime comes out, and then I'll pick it up from there. And I realized I have a lot of success doing that, because that's how I got it at MHA. That's how I got it in a couple other things. The Promised Neverland, actually. I know the manga was running long before, but I watched the anime before I read the manga. So I said, you know what, that might be my jam. Let me do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in this first episode. I have not seen it. I haven't seen no premiere. We didn't get to go to the thing at Anime NYC because there are a bunch of blah blah blahs. But we're gonna do that. We're gonna do Blue Box. So it's like spooky / romantic comedy kind of vibe. So we're gonna be doing that next week, and then the following week we're gonna be doing the premiere of Dragon Ball Daima, which I think is great. It's like a return to form for this podcast. Any Dragon Ball content that we get, we will take.
I am oddly optimistic about Daima. And I know that hasn't been my tone on, since it's been introduced, but I'm oddly optimistic about it. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just Dragon Ball deprived.
I think the idea that we've already seen the angels in the Dragon Ball Z universe, and now we're exploring the demons, is enough to get me intrigued for it. I would say that's kind of like my main. I was like, oh, okay, kind of expanding the lore of it, because I'm sure it'll deal with whenever the super manga comes back. It'll dive into that as well. But I'm not mad at Daima at all. I'm open to see what's going on. It's probably one of the last anime works that has been done by Akira Toriyama, so that's enough of a selling point for me. And it just should be fun. And I'm doing an article now for OK Player on this whole release. And the what this feels like, it feels special. It feels like a return to form for Dragon Ball, because, again, we have a game coming out. We have an anime coming out. We have the manga coming back. We have a lot of different things that are going to be popping up over the next couple weeks. So I'm excited for everything that Dragon Ball is doing right now. I was ready for it to be back when this podcast started in 2018, and we finally got something.
I think for fans, especially readers of Super, I think this initial, like, hey, we're back, Dragon Ball, but we're not getting anything from Super adapted, especially like knowing what comes after. which are two really good arcs. Yeah, I think Does Daima felt like cheap. Not to say it like that, but it felt cheap. Like
It's another.
Like, it feels like a second place prize.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I don't know how much longer they can tell the story of Main. We'll get into it with Diamond.
Yeah, obviously,
I don't want to have this whole discussion.
Yeah. I think we'll have again, going back to my favorite word of the day, context of what they're bringing us. But no, overall though, I am optimistic about Daima, what Daima will bring though.
And then we have the main event for this. So a couple weeks after that, we'll take a week off break. The main event for this season is we're going to be covering, starting October 28th, we'll begin Sugumi's or Oba's Death Note, which is something that you requested I watch. I can look back. I can say I've watched it. I watched it entirely to prepare, just mentally prepare for it. And I have thoughts, but I feel ultimately there's something about, even when a show like continues to pull me into watching, I was like, I can't be too, I'm not mad at the show, but I'm like, there's some things I would have done differently, but I think it's a good show. And I think it's a departure from what we usually kind of like talk about. This one has no real fighting. It has some like 2% fighting. But it's really like mental warfare, psychological thriller. Why am I saying like people haven't seen Death Note? I'm the one who's late to this shit. Like,
I just wanted you to watch. I mean, as we're gonna really get in depth and talk about it, and I can't wait.
In depth for sure, yes.
This Death Note is just, there are just some moments in there.
Why did you suggest like we go through this? Why did you think that we should go through
because
this?
I felt that you wouldn't. I felt that Tokyo Ghoul would be not your cup of tea fully.
It wasn't when we did it for Summer at Kame House.
Oh yeah, you did do it, huh? Yeah. So
and I it was not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's something a little bit out of the norm that we usually do. It's obviously something popular. There are some great memes that came from this show that I was like, I can't wait for Meelz to see these like in full context.
No, for sure. I hold my phone a different way now because of the show. It just is what it is.
You know, I just thought, I'm like, this would just be a fun show for me to get Meelz' insight on.
Fun is not the word for this, and not that it's bad.
Not fun. Like the show is fun. You're like, the thought of you watching it though is fun for me. It's like, I know that there are some points where Meelz is like, what the fuck is going on here? And I know there's probably some moments that you really enjoyed. I think the mental warfare aspect of it is really funny because I think you're a highly intelligent person, and so I could see that there are some dumb things that happen where you're just like, how does 2 and 2 equal 4 here? Yeah, no, I legit wanted you to watch it because I'm just like, I feel it is like just bringing joy to my heart that I'm like, Meelz is sitting through Death Note right now, and I just can't wait to hear what he thinks about it.
Well, you know what? Shout out to you. I feel better watched it. I feel like my anime lore has been expanded properly, and I feel like I'm truly like one of the anime people now who have seen Death Note and can just not hear it in passing and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that was a thing. So I've watched it. I look forward to putting the thoughts together. Of course, I'm going to watch it again when we go through it beginning on October 28th. So I will watch it again. But it was a definitely interesting series. It was a great back and forth. I think it had a great intro. This is definitely like low key, like school shooter kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
But
definitely trench coat in the summertime.
Yeah, one of them. But nonetheless, it should be great for the season. And then after that ends off, we'll talk about what we're doing for the rest of the year. But I think I want to just get into JJK. I think I want to, because I feel like we're going to have a long discussion on this for reasons. And I'm getting myself comfortable in my chair right now because JJK is to me, I'll say my overall thoughts on JJK. I like JJK. but, and that's kind of my overall thoughts on it, because there's things I accept here in this anime that I would not accept in other anime. There's things I would accept in this story that I wouldn't accept in other stories.
Do you think it's
And
a thing of characters? Is it storyline? Is it kind of just like you're kind of already accepted of this is what it is, and I've already kind of been in this race long enough, so I'm just gonna accept it for what it is?
I'll tell you the comparison. People like NSYNC more than Backstreet Boys for certain reasons. Now, Backstreet Boys has had a longer career, has probably had better songs, has a lot of things. But NSYNC has had really big moments over the course of their like literally 3-year run, right? Like you think about Bye Bye Bye, you'll always remember like It's Gonna Be May, like all these other things, like these like little things are moments in time. And you will never forget those moments. And in fact, those moments will carry you. But you'll never think of NSYNC as actual like real musicians who are like, oh my God, they're such like, you know, they're such leaders of their craft and all these other things like that. And I'll never think of JJK as like this amazing exposition story. But I will say it has the moments that really carry it, really stick with you, and really define this series. And that's all I'll say about that. But I want to ask you a question.
All right, I'm here.
It's a double-edged sword. This is a double entendre. Don't ask me how a question.
All right.
How do we feel about Jujutsu Kaisen ending? And how do we feel about the ending to Jujutsu Kaisen? Different questions.
Yeah. How I feel about it ending, I think it was time.
Okay.
I think that it was reaching a point of it was starting to become the villain. People were starting to turn on it. It was kind of, and I think it ended at the right time. If not, people already turned on it. I think kind of the ending didn't leave a good
Most
taste.
anime readers do not like endings for
Yeah,
anything. So
but I think it was time. I think that it ended when it needed to. I think that if it continued to run on, it would have came to a really, really the ending would have been more sloppy than most people feel. I don't feel it's as sloppy as it's made to be, but I understand how people can take it that way. Um,
mm-hmm.
but no, the fact that it's ended, I am okay with. I
Okay.
think that it has run its course. Also, I think that JJK running alongside MHA, I don't know why. It was just a really special thing with those two, and I think when you kind of take
Mm-hmm.
away one, it's kind of just like, like even if
Hmm.
JJK ended before MHA, like reading MHA, I'll just be like, damn, like kind of loses his like luster a little bit because they were so intertwined,
Right.
it's just one of those things. It's just like you got the two top in the game kind of going head to head, and you're gonna miss those like those conversations that we've had with each chapter. Um, but no, I think that it ended at a good time. I'm okay with it ending. Now, how do I feel about the ending? Um,
Yes.
I think it was solid. I think it was a solid ending. I think it wasn't as bad as people kind of made it seem. I think it did. And I read it in a chunk. So I've gotten a full kind of flow of the story.
Right.
And I think week to week, it kind of wasn't adding up. But when you read it in that final span, you don't even have to go full blown like 76 chapters like I did. I was just doing it
Mm-hmm.
for my own, knowledge.
Right.
But if you read like the last like maybe 20, I think like when you read that final volume, it's gonna flow so much nicer than it was and how it felt week by week. Um But no, I think the ending
which
was
is like how it is with that's how it is with most mangas.
yeah. You know, I think we said
And most stories just in
this,
general.
we have said this about many stories many times.
Yeah.
Hey, like week by week, this felt kind of weird, or this felt kind of choppy, or this felt kind of like, what are we doing here? But when you kind of you read it in that chunk or in that kind of spread that it needs to, you're like, okay, I can see the context and I can see that how everything kind of flows and connects together. So you're like, okay, cool. And I think for a lot of people, when it was finally announced that, hey, this is ending, it was at a spot where you're kind of just like, well, how the fuck are you gonna end it? Like you're kind of just like,
I mean, essentially, yeah. I'm not gonna forget that.
Yeah, you're like, it's like, okay, we got 5 chapters left. You're like, how are you gonna end this in 5 chapters? Even me and you said this. Is like, how does this wrap up in 5 chapters?
Yeah,
and I think once again, you see it in the totality and see it how it's probably in the whole spread, and you're like, okay, that's solid, that's good. Like, is it great? Is it excellent? Is it something where it's like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest ending I've ever seen? This is how you conclude a story. No, I'm not gonna give it that level of praise. Am I going to say though that is this a solid ending for what I consider a really great manga? Yeah, this is a solid ending.
I think so. Kind of like running my questions back on me in terms of how I feel about it ending. I do think it was time. I think it could have, to be honest with you, depending on how they played the story, it could have gone on a little bit longer, if we're going to be real. It just kind of depending on how they tell the story. Gege does these things where we have these long sprints of fighting through the series, and the 2 major ones are there's 3 major ones at this point. Like, the story really revolves around these 3 pillars of the Shibuya incident, the Culling Games, and now the Shinjuku showdown arc. And I think if they had been a little bit more breathing in between all of them, and kind of like also reduce the amount. I'm saying chapter wise. Probably when it comes to the adaptation, this will be like 20 episodes, maybe like 17, something along those lines. But I think if there was a little bit of breath where you kind of like really explored exposition, built these characters, set up the stakes, all these things in kind of like a real, actual, proper way, you probably could have extended it a little bit longer, or we could have ended it more succinctly. But in terms of the ending of this, I think my big question was always when I was reading through this, especially during the parts where like the U.S. military shows up and the fights and stuff like that, I would always ask myself with the question, what does the ending of the series look like? Like, what does it genuinely look like? And I feel like it's weird. The story definitely is about Yuji, and the big bad, I guess, established in the beginning was Sukuna. But was it really? Like, that's how I always felt, because it never felt like Sukuna was a major villain in the series, don't get me wrong. But it never felt like he had the ambitions of a major villain that Kenjaku had. So I'd never really accepted to the end of like, okay, they beat. That's why I think everyone got to the point where it's like, all right, so the merger has to happen, right? Like, because I low-key think that they've always thought like the final villain was Kenjaku and not Sukuna.
Yeah. I think you get that feeling because Kenjaku had a plan, which we figured out his plan was
and Sukuna was kind of like sprinkled throughout the series. Like there's long periods of the series you don't see Sukuna, you don't even hear about Sukuna. He has nothing really to do with the plot. Yeah. He has a lot to do with I think even in the beginning. And one thing I'll say about the beginning is it sets the table a lot. So I say the beginning part of the series set a lot of the table, and by the time you get to the end of the series, he's like, what happened to the fucking table? But
I think the pieces get moved around a lot. But I mean, I think
shit, you sitting at a bench suddenly. You sitting at an airport suddenly. It's like, I thought we were sitting at a table. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I just to kind of finish the thought. I think the beginning of it set the stakes between the protagonist, the antagonist. Hey, we're trying to build this world. You had these kind of like three different things. Some people wanted just to revive Sakuna so he could be the king of curses and take over the world, and curses can kind of like really take over the world. Then you had Kenjaku, who realistically like wanted to bring in kind of this new world where it was like completely different than anything villain or hero anticipated. And then you had kind of like, what does this mean for the Jujutsu world? Um, and also something that also wasn't established, or I felt like wasn't clearly depicted enough. What do the humans have to do with this? Like, technically, we're saving humans, kind of, but it never really gets like used or brought up, or there's no stakes for it. It ends up just being Jujutsu warriors versus curses. Um, so it's kind of, to me, the beginning part set a lot of the table, and I think a lot of people are disappointing at it because the table that was set didn't really seem to be following like there's nothing to really like sink your teeth in afterwards. I mean, there was stuff to sink your teeth in, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what you were presented. And I think people confuse that by saying like, we think we wanted something and we didn't get it. Whereas I think the story leaned more in a direction hinting towards something, and then it just never followed up.
I mean, I don't believe that though. I
Talk
think
about it.
that I think throughout the story, Sakuna had always been presented as, hey, this is the most powerful curse to ever live. It's the
Right.
most powerful entity to ever set forth.
Right.
And I think, you know, you kind of, you in terms of power scaling, you kind of hit, you got your plateau, right? You got your peak, Sakuna. This is the most
Sure.
powerful villain that we have to defeat. I think where Kenjaku comes in is where it's like you have someone who is kind of setting up these roadblocks in front of our heroes. And it has its own certain plans, and obviously Sakuna's a part of those plans, and we even see it towards the end when Kenjaku dies, and immediately that new rule is established where it's like essentially
Even his
Sakuna,
death,
huh?
also even his death to me is like, oh,
I think the death is.
the
I,
the death the death came in such, I guess, as a
do you think
Gege
because
way.
it was silly? You think
I
it
don't
was
think
because
it's
it was tied
particularly.
into the humor that the death didn't feel that it hit as much as you wanted it to?
I think there's a part of it that I think people lean on is like, you'd have finished him off, like he was the, like he finished off the original Ghetto or something along those lines, and people maybe put their finger on that. But I think the death had nothing, like, to me, the death had the, the death served no purpose.
But he
Like, he's
did.
gonna die. He's
He
gonna die
died,
eventually.
but then like you could still see how he planned 10 steps ahead even when he died.
Yeah, but realistically, like, the game couldn't finish unless everybody else died. So is the Cullen game like still going on?
No, it was the rule. Once
The
Ghetto
rule was
died,
that, no, the
or
rule was
once
everybody
Kenjaku
else.
died, and once uh Sukuna died, the game was done.
So the rule wasn't everybody else must die, and then Kenjaku and Geto. If they have to kill everyone for the game to officially be over.
Yeah, I think that's what the explanation was. This is why we need the field guide book. The field guide book, which is coming.
Right, because from everything that I'm reading, so I'd spent quite a bit on the fandom and reading the thing and
Yeah.
watching the videos and stuff like that. And like, I thought part of it was like either everyone else dies or they have to die or one of the other is when the game actually ends. But the way the Cullen games like kind of like falls in the background after Gojo come, like there's just so many different situations where I'm just like, all right, so what was the point? I don't want to say that Kenjaku's death. Well, I actually do want to say that I think it. I think yes, it was definitely silly, even though I enjoyed the silliness. But I think just the way that he died was so anticlimactic, considering how he was built up. It reminded me of the death of what's my man's name, who died in the Shibuya incident for no reason. Not for no reason, but he was eventually, absorbed into Kenjaku, and he was able to use his idol transfiguration to
Mahito.
awaken up. Yeah, even I thought he was a great villain that should have got way more burn, and he ends up appearing in this final chapter. But it's like the final chapter is like some shit that you see at his part in the final chapters is some shit like the credits are already rolling, and it's like, I thought you wanted to be this, and he's like, no, and he disappears like Jafar or some shit like that.
I don't feel like that. I think that every villain played its role.
I need it. Yeah. Let me hear your explanation, because I need to wrap my head around
every
this.
villain played its role. I think Mahito was there
to what though?
I think
for what?
Mahito was the chaotic catalyst to get Yuji to where he's at. For him to be like, he was just this chaos in Yuji's life, and that's fine. Okay. I think Kenjaku was the brain around all the plans. He's the one that put the pieces on the board and was moving them around. He had a contingency for the contingency. He had the plan for the plan. He had the A, B step.
He didn't have enough plans because the plan didn't even go through.
Well, I mean, the final plan though was Sukuna's gonna be the one to get what's Tengen.
The merger. Yeah,
he's gonna be the one to do the merger. He listen. He was like, my plan is to make this merger happen, regardless of I'm alive or dead for it. For the simple fact, for his own pleasure of, I just want to do this shit. I just want to see what would happen if all this cursed energy merged into one thing. And so, and we've even known that the depth of his plans, with a simple fact, was once again for the sake of chaos, for the sake of I want to see this happen. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. He had no. I don't think Sukuna had any interest in the merger, nor did I think it was going to benefit him in any way.
But he went in with the plan. Even when you're in the middle of the fight, even when he got the power to make the merger happen, he said, I'm going to kill y'all. I'm going to kill, what did he say? I'm going to kill y'all. I'm going to kill this, right? And then once this is all done, no, he said, I'm going to kill y'all. I'm going to kill everyone else after. Whoever's else in the lesson of come, I'm going to kill them. And once this is done, I'm going to make the merger happen. I'm going to probably kill whatever the thing is. For him, once again, I think it's a gift and a curse of this. I think there was just no basis for anyone's plans other than for the sake of chaos.
So
and I think that is what is throwing everything off, is that there was no deeper meaning to, I wanted all these curses to happen because I feel humanity is this horrible thing, and I think this world really belongs to curses and this and that. Or there was no deeper meaning to this evil. It was just legit hey, I'm just going to be evil for the fucking sake of being evil. I'm going to be chaotic. I'm going to cause all this destruction and chaos for the simple fact that it pleasures me. That's it. And I think that was really everyone's basis of everything, or at least for the villain side.
I mean, they all had their own ideals of why they wanted to do things. But I also feel like, beyond the fact that none of this came to fruition, right? It was something that was dangled in front of us and didn't even come true. Which is, I'm not going to say it's a major beef, but a lot, because they got pretty far with the plan. They got pretty far. It would have changed the universe. Everyone would have died, et cetera, et cetera. And we've seen situations where plans are, come to true fruition and stuff like that. But I feel like the reason why it's such a letdown is because, again, I felt like the processes of Sukuna and Geto were moving so much in parallel and not ever in, I get he wanted his role in this to be this and all this other thing so he could do this, but to me, Sukuna's didn't really feel like the merger was something. He was like because to be honest with you, I think if he wanted to activate the merger, he could have. Well, actually, he needed to kill every. I don't know. The Culling Games would have needed to end for him to begin the merger, I guess. But it never felt like he was along that part of the story. It never felt like he was like a co-op agent for Kenjaku at any time. The first interaction within the actual story itself isn't until the beginning of the final arc, or the end of the Culling Games, rather. So to me, there's just like so much. There's so much potential for story that could have been told. I don't want to say holes. I feel like there's so much potential for story that could have been told if they decided to take a stop for a second and just tell.
No, I agree with you on that front. I think because they really took the time to flesh out a story, to flesh out some reasoning, flesh out some like, hey, we're not doing this for the sake of chaos. Once again, there's a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose to what the things that we are doing.
Like some of the best chapters to me are one of the best chapters that kind of like put things in perspective, right? It was this chapter where they meet Tengen, and Tengen told them all about these things and the Culling Games and all this other stuff like that. And I was like, oh, final, like someone's explaining something in this fucking show. Like, and not like explaining something all after the fact, like what happened in the final arc, where everyone was like, which I have my issues with the final arc because I feel like too many things were explained after we were shown and weren't given proper context or given proper like. I don't think it was given the proper moment that it could have had, because so many things were like, we decided to do this, but now we're telling you this now instead of telling you this before. And the reason why it's working is because we kept it a secret, not only from Sukuna, but from you, and also from Yuji, and also from other people, and all these other stuff like that. But trust me, we had a plan the entire time. And it's like, gotcha, bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, the final arc, while I think holds probably one of the most hyped and probably one of the biggest battles in Shonen between Gojo and Sukuna, it felt also it felt there was no. I didn't feel a strong reason as to why, I guess, Gojo had to do it alone.
I mean, they said it was just more so about like
why he had to jump out in front of it and like kill him. Did he want to kill himself? Is that what it really was he like, I'm probably gonna die during this, but I want to die. Maybe it's like, I want to die so the future of Jujutsu can flourish because I'm such this big fucking albatross in this thing. And he realizes that he's this major fucking albatross in all of this that causes so much issues that he felt like he should have died. But I felt like there was a way that you could have.
But I don't even think that. I think just that. Like Gojo's demeanor anyways is, I don't want help. I'm the strongest around. I know I'm the strongest around. I can beat this guy. Like,
but there's also like the undercurrent, like he's a monster.
But this whole temperament throughout this series has been fucking stand back, and everyone goes, hey, Gojo's here, stand back and let him do what he does.
Right, but you would think that he learned from the initial time he did that, and he got fucked up, which is why it doesn't make any sense of why he did it again.
Well, I mean, not that he needed the help. Think about when it originally happened. He came back stronger. He was able to reach in some level of enlightenment that gives us one of the best manga panels ever. He reached this level of enlightenment, and that's how Hollow Purple came to be. And he ends up defeating, Toji and the
Oh, well, I wasn't even talking about that instance. Oh. Well, but yeah,
I was talking about you were speaking of the last time he went in.
No, he went in by himself during the Shibuya incident and he got trapped like a dumbass. And then when he gets free, he essentially is like, I'm running headfirst into this again. And I feel like the reason I say it's the albatross is because of the last chapter where he's like explaining to Yuji is like, the world doesn't need any more fucking Gojos, man. The world needs more you guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, but I feel like, to me, the death of Gojo and the death of so many in this show, I find it really hard to have a death where I'm just like, you know what? Beyond the idea of like Gojo's death needed to happen because he was this major albatross, I never felt like it was warranted within the story itself, because it felt like he was just doing shit for the sake of doing shit.
I mean,
because he's Gojo, because he's Gojo, obviously.
Akutami has already told us, hey, if I feel that killing this character off,
I understand
it's
that.
going
I understand the reason.
story.
I understand the reason why he did it, but narratively, I feel like it's such a, it's so weird to have this
would have
situation.
rather seen Gojo get help defeating Sukuna than him dying and then them jumping in and defeating Sukuna.
Yeah, I would have rather him realize that. Sorry, there was a fly around me. I would have rather him realize at some point during this fight that maybe, and I don't think he had to die to do this, but apparently he had to fucking die. Maybe he could have died all after the fact, but I feel like at some point during this fight, he could have said, either I can't do this alone, I need to take a step back, this won't be me, or he gets like really, really injured to the point of like no return sort of thing, and then
he did get injured to the point of no return.
I mean, no, not like massive. I'm saying no. That's not an injury. That's not injury. That's removing him from the series. But he was featured in the series all after the fact, because they had all these fucking flashbacks and they had all these, I'm gonna put on a Gojo costume and go fight this nigga again. Like, they had all these things that kind of happened that didn't make, that I felt like, to me, narratively within Gojo's story, the idea is, and I think people want to rest in the lines that like he feels like he's the strongest, and that is his character, that he feels like he's the strongest, but like there's no depth to any of this, which is weird.
So what's the difference then between Gojo and Goku?
The idea, all right, so the difference between Gojo and Goku is when Goku took a step back, you're talking about the cell when he offed himself and shit.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the, I think.
So this was Goku's attempt Goku's attempt was the last resort, because he misunderstood essentially his son in this instance. He was like, listen, this isn't gonna thing. I have to take the fall for it because I did a lot of these things. And he stepped in forward and said, like, I will be the one to save Earth. He did it selfishly, but it was for the purpose of that. And then he realized he ends up coming back in this instance, and they got to still fight fucking Cell. But to me, the idea of just running in and then getting murked for the sake of like,
but I don't think he ran in and was like, oh, I'm finna
just
get
for the
murked.
sake of, I think he did.
Beat fair and square. He just got.
I think he sounded like throughout this entire thing, and you can look at the chapters afterwards, you can look at the chapters beforehand, you can look at all these things. He sounded ready to die. Notorious B.I.G. Notorious Gojo. He sounded ready to die.
I don't disagree with that. I think that he was definitely. I think he was more anticipating that, hey, I could potentially die in this.
You could die, right?
Yeah, right. I think it was just more so of him letting them know, of realizing the fact of like, hey, I can die during this battle, so we need to have a contingency plan or something else if I do. Like, I do, I'm fighting against the strongest curse to ever live. I am the strongest sorcerer right now. This guy is one of the strongest ever. Like, it's not like he's fighting a bum. It's like, okay, I feel like from that final realization of, hey, this could potentially be my last battle. And I think that's all it was.
Chapter. Let me open up this chapter. I feel like from this last chapter, low key, he sounded like he was ready to die. And this is in the last chapter, the events of it take place before the thing when he's talking to Yuji and stuff like that. But I feel like he was like ready to essentially sacrifice himself. He's like, If the worst happens, it's my wish and my dream for you to carry on in my absence. Even if I go out the way I am, everyone will grow up and surpass me one day. Da, 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 da. He said, this isn't like you. Where'd your confidence go? You gonna be okay like that? Hey, you're so naive. I've never been sure of myself. I'm counting on you, Yuji. This entire conversation, to me, this entire back and forth where he's like, where Yuji's like, sounds like you ready to die. And he's like, I've never been more confident in the way that I think. I'm like, you sounded like you was ready to go though. Like,
I think
to
I don't
me,
think it's I don't
counting
I think
on
it's more so
him
of him
counting on
coming to the
Yuji,
realization that death is an option on the table. And I think this was the
right?
first time he has gone against an opponent where he's like, hey, death is an option on the table. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
fight this guy fair and square, 1-on-1. That's what it
But
is.
he didn't think. But he clearly says in the beginning, "I'm gonna win." That's the meme. You know what I'm saying? He says, "I'm gonna win," but realistically, like, I
But
don't
then
think
it's
there's
kind of just like,
ever
you ever been in a situation though where you're kind of just like in your head, you're like, damn, like this is kind of a tough situation to be in. But externally, you have to be like, no, I'm confident going into this. I don't like. I think
I'm.
I think it happens with a lot of like.
I don't think you have
I think that's
confidence
a
going
feeling.
in.
I think that's a
Well,
feeling that we have all felt before, though, of going into a situation where probably internally we're like, wow, I could take a massive L here. Like I could probably
sure.
could. But externally, I'm like, hey, I'm about to like externally, I can't let it be shown that hey, internally I'm kind of racked up. I'm just like, I
Right.
don't know. Like he's kind of just like,
So,
fuck it, I'm gonna win. Like, why wouldn't I say I'm gonna win? Why wouldn't I
so
say
let's tell the story of the difference between the external and the internal doubt that's happening. And while they alluded to it, which is why I think he thought he was going to lose the entire time, or at least he expected to lose the entire time. Or I guess there was an option that he could lose this entire time because they're going through all the contingencies of like, let me put on this nigga's bodysuit. Let me, if he dies, I got to kill thing over here to make sure this happens or this happened and all this other stuff like that. But I think realistically, like, I get why Gege kills off the characters in the show. It's to elicit a feeling from the reader, especially for some people who have these connections with it. I just think the deaths in the show don't hold much value when they're done in certain ways. You know what I'm saying? Like the haphazardly way to kill off major villains in the show to me has never, to me, been cool. I'm sure people love it. It again, it elicits the very like instinctual reaction of like he's dead. But to me, it doesn't really go beyond that. Like, Gojo died, and realistically, I think Yuji was always going to become Yuji anyway. I don't think, just kind of based on like all after the fact, like we learn out that he's like Sakuna's half brother's dad's, form that was reincarnated, blah blah blah, and also Kenjaku was his mom, and all this other stuff all after the fact. So I think just by, which added a lot of context to what happened in the beginning, but I felt like it was so late to fucking tell that story. Like, I felt like knowing all of this before the fight happened would have made everything so much cooler.
knowing
Yuji's relation to Sukuna.
oh the twin womb thing?
Yeah. I felt like that would have made it so much cooler beforehand because it seems like it's tacked on at the end of the story. It's like, well, this shit's about to end. Let me say this shit now. But I feel like,
agree. I do kind of understand why they put it where it was because like this is the first time they're really facing off against each other.
yeah, but yeah, I agree.
I agree. I think that you would understand the relationship more, and no, not even that. You would understand why Yuji was able to control it as well as he did throughout the series.
You would understand why this nigga could throw a fucking baseball 1,000,000 feet in the first episode. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would understand his like superhuman strength for no fucking reason that just happens in the show and stuff like that. Like, it would have added, again, people are gonna say, "Oh, you're wishing things happen that didn't happen and it wasn't part of the story." But part of me is like, certain elements need to happen before these other things happen to give it better context, so it doesn't seem like you're making up shit along the way. Which is what I felt like for, to be honest, this entire final arc. It sounded like there, like I remember we had when we talked about, and we've talked about a lot of final arcs on this for the lookout for a number of years. I remember one of the major issues we had Demon Slayer in that final arc was suddenly Muzan was getting weakened by some shit that was just thrown out there in the middle of it. It was like, oh, actually, this woman's poison has been aging him 1,000 years every hour or every 20 minutes or something. And it was like, that sounds like bullshit. He sounds like he was getting, niggas was getting their ass whooped too hard and they had to make some shit up. That's what this final arc felt like for me, to be honest with you. And it had a lot of great moments.
I wouldn't put it on the level of that because,
bro, it's like that times 20 because it happened 20 times. No, it happened literally 20 times. It
was like hash slinging slasher for like 1,000 chapters, and then something wild would happen, and then it's like, oh, whoa!
People got hit with black flashes. People got murked. People got thrown cooked. And Yuta.
I mean, this is the part. I mean, what's the difference between this and like during MHA where it's like, oh, All for One is now hitting this person with 30 different quirks, and now he got over Shigaraki's body, and now he got like.
It was established that this nigga. It was established this nigga had 1,000,000 quirks always.
But it was okay, and it was established that Sukuna was the strongest demon or the strongest curse ever. So, like, I would.
That's not. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing what.
So Sukuna's I'm just saying, I don't expect them to go in and be like,
"I'm telling
this
you,
is a cakewalk."
I'm telling you the story writing element of this. This is not about the things that happen in it. This is about the story writing element where we, as the reader, find out about stuff all after the fact, and it's supposed to be. In some instances, if you do it once or twice, it can be cool. But if you continue to do it 8 million times, the shit sounds like you're making shit up along the way. I have the fucking the body swap shit, what they did with Wee Wee, where he was like, actually, you ain't know this in the fucking chapters where I was before, but I can actually swap bodies, and then you can learn the technique of someone from your body, and then you can return back, and you'll have the technique. Like,
no, now that was bullshit. I do agree. That was a bunch of whoopla where I was just like, all right, this is getting.
I wrote down a couple of things during this final arc that just like got in my nerves. One, the higher ups just being murked, just killed. Like, just
I was fine with that. I hated them anyways.
Yeah, but
another great panel of just dead bodies on the floor.
To me, it felt like, oh shit, we should probably do something about this before we wrap it up. Hold on, let me see.
But I think it was already kind of insinuated that they're gonna die. Those things are gonna get killed. No one liked them.
I didn't even know them.
I had this feeling that they were gonna get killed after when the end of Shibuya arc, when they tell Yuta to go kill Yuji.
Right. Which I agree. So they were like, oh, these things are established and these things are established. And yeah, they deserve to die. Of course. They deserve to die. But again, this was thrown in all after the fact. This could have been thrown in. There's some things that could have been told to us beforehand. And if we had just gotten a second to chill, we went from a panel of Gojo returns and it's this fucking awesome, moment, it just is what it is. It's really the climax of kind of thing. Gojo's finally back. Yes. Breaks the internet. All this other shit like that. To the end of the next chapter, it's like, I'll see you on December 24th, nigga. And then the next chapter is December 24th, nigga. Hold up. And
I think we talked about this before, that during this moment, it would have been more pleasurable for us as readers for to throw all those little flashback planning things during that.
Yeah.
Between those two chapters of November
Right.
and December.
There's some of them I think that
now some of
work
them
well.
fit in perfectly.
Yeah, some of them fit in perfectly. Don't get
I
me
feel
wrong.
like some of the other shit, like you said, like the wee thing where you're like, hey, I could switch bodies. Like that's something I would have liked to know beforehand.
Yeah. I mean, I think even in general, like Yuji's development, Yuji's finding out about things, Yuji absorbing the other fucking curse placentas, like 4 through 9, and eating them and getting these powers and stuff like that. Like, I didn't want a whole Naruto training arc. This is not what I wanted. But I wanted some breath in the story of where you can say, we really need to set up for this final battle. Here are all the stakes. Here are the positions where everyone lies. You don't have to tell me everything that everybody's going to do right before they do it. But here's what we're going to do. Because I don't want to I'm trying my hardest. I'm not comparing this to MHA. Because it's just different, right? But MHA took that break. They took the time. They was like, all right, before the battle, here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. And they showed parts of it all after the fact. But it never felt like they were just making shit up.
No, for real. I completely agree. They could have used the breathing room to at least give it a better base and a better like ground to be on than, hey, let's just jump straight into this battle and we will tell you things along the way as they kind of as need to know basis.
Right.
You know?
Or let's continue. Let's take the precious moments we have with Gojo and everyone else. Whatever, Team Kakashi, whatever. Let's take the moments that we have with them and let's continue to tell the story narratively of like where Gojo's actually at with all of this and how he genuinely feels about all of this. Like, to me, the and also just like you could have done more. Again, they did it in parallel. You could do it in parallel with the Megumi stuff and all this other stuff like that. But to me, just to kind of break down, because we're going back and forth, and obviously you feel one way about these things, and I feel one way about these things, but ultimately, I do think that Jujutsu Kaisen is a it's a enjoyable anime with a lot of like bad tendencies throughout it. That again, you would not let pass by in other shows, but you do in this one because the moments are so big, the characters are so lovable, the fights are incredible, and all these things like that. So
I think it's a Sean Merriam situation where you're like, or Sean Marion situation where it's like his shooting form is so ugly, but you're like, it fucking works and he gets a bucket, so I can't really say too much. that's what it's like to me. Where it's like, are there some things where you're just like, like you said, if this was anybody else writing this story like this, I wouldn't let it slide as much. But for here, for some odd reason, it's
Bleach.
working.
No one lets this shit slide in Bleach. Everyone's like, this shit.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't let the heavy narration and the heavy explanation and the heavy word text slide sometimes in Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's certain things that he's doing here where, like you said, I agree that we would rag on another anime, another manga for doing the same exact thing. We would. I just think that here in this story, for some odd reason, it ends up working. And I think it comes with Akutami's transparency as a writer, where he will tell us, he will make a note, he will do an interview and just say, hey, sometimes I do shit for the sake of doing shit. Hey, sometimes if I think it will work right here, I will do it. I will kill off a character. I will add in some stipulation. It will work. And I think that that kind of allows us in his mind a little bit as a writer to understand when we're reading it of, okay, he's already told us he does shit for the sake of doing shit because he feel it'll make the story better. So it's like kind of like we're able to lipo it. We're able to let it play out.
Yeah. Let's let one of the characters be thought of dead for half the series, and then actually not dead. Actually, she's not.
And she comes in the clutch, and then her technique works, and it's the reason why it works.
She one-shots him. That's what she did. Everyone else died for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Was getting killed and sliced and getting ShamWowed and all this other shit throughout the entire thing. She's like, I have the perfect technique for this motherfucker, actually. And I woke up half an hour ago. And it's Christmas. But
what a better, you can't ask for a better gift.
What they never talk about how it's Christmas in the damn show.
They don't. I love how Christmas Eve too is like
it's the death day. It's like this all happens then. People also complain about MHA. It's like this all happened in 1 year. I'm like, didn't all of this story happen in like maybe like this also happened in 1 year, right?
Yeah, I mean, from Shibuya to now, it's only been a couple months. It's like been 3 months.
Essentially.
I mean, like I don't know. I think there's minuscule things I feel that as fans complain about where I'm just like I don't care. Like I don't care about the timeline and the like. If I feel that if a time skip or maybe whatever fits the story better, cool. But like, who cares? But no, I don't think that JJK doesn't come without its faults. I'm not saying that it's perfect.
Right.
And I even feel, I mean, and listen,
that's why I said it was enjoyable because I do enjoy JJK.
It was enjoyable and it was solid. I think that, yes, there are some fundamental things that could have definitely been fixed. There are some storytelling things that could have definitely been better.
I can't say it's a good story. I can't say it's a good story.
You can't
say it was. No, I can say it was enjoyable, but I cannot say JJK has a good story. What did you gain from the end of the show?
What did I gain? Like watching?
What is?
Like, are you telling me like what's the big lesson?
Yeah.
I mean, you got like before Yuji was ready to throw his life away. He was like, "All right, fuck it, I'll die if it's time to do my role." And he's just like, "No, like actually, like." Doing my role isn't always doing these big things. Like it's enjoying my life and enjoying my friends. It's enjoying, like you even see Sukuna at the end be like, hey, if I get reincarnated, like I do it differently. Like, I think it's just more so of them finding out of just like what it means to play your part and play your role and do these things in life. Like, what is life meaningful to you? What does it mean to find your own like purpose in life? It like usually it was just like, hey, listen, I'm gonna eat this finger, cool, and I'm gonna die. You're gonna kill Sukuna with me, cool.
Right.
But then it's at a point where he's just like, you get to the end, and he's like, no, like actually, like, I like part of my role of playing in life is being a friend, having friends, enjoying the things that I'm doing. Yeah.
Yuji has great development in this series. I can't say that for many other people, and maybe Megumi to an extent, but not really. But Sukuna also not really, to be honest with you. Sukuna just sounds like he's not a sore loser. that's essentially it. Just sounds like, hey, man.
But like also too, you got to think
they got us.
How prideful was he?
He was prideful, but I don't think. But he was
prideful to the end of his ending.
But he even when he was challenged, he was like, you know what, that nigga's he's a hooper. You know what I'm saying? That Higuruma guy, what a hooper. He was like, I love that guy. What's his name? Miguel? Oh my god!
He said there's basketball players. He said there's basketball players and there's hoopers.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's an enjoyable story. But I don't think it has like good storytelling throughout it. No, I can't. It's I don't think there's a major motif.
No,
I don't think there's a major um follow through, proper follow through. I think there's still a lot of elements of the story that people do not understand. It's just very confusing because that's what initially turned me off from the story, why I had to watch the anime, because I was like, this is kind of confusing. I get curses and stuff like that, but the power structure is kind of confusing. I think there's so many different things, even to how it kind of like it wraps up, it ends, which I feel like it ends because eventually it had to end. But even the final 5 chapters to me are like, okay, it to me it if Fake leaves the door open for a sequel if it ever wanted to happen, but to me the end of like even the final chapter is like, we gotta figure out what's happened to Yuta. And the following chapter, Yuta's okay. Don't fuck it. Like he's fine. He was never in trouble. Um, even though it was like all of his options were like you die. Um,
But then Rika saves him. Rika was able to use the copy technique to restore his body.
No one knew that when everyone was like in the
But
three
they
options were
explained it when
you
he
die, you
took over.
die.
They essentially explained the same concept when he took over Gojo's body.
The options he was given, I won't get into it, but the options, I think there was one option where he lived and stuff like that, but he would still be kind of like stunted from it. But essentially, everything is fucking okay with this incredibly dangerous, risky. I'm gonna do this, but I shouldn't do this, but someone's got to do it. Damn it, because y'all too pussy to do it, and all this other shit like that.
That's the
Like
best part.
to me, he's very future Trunks with it. But
oh yeah, he really was. He went full A. Y'all some.
We got to do it by any means necessary because this is the Earth that we were talking about, in the future.
Yeah,
but no,
he definitely saw things he shouldn't have seen.
He was I think just overall, yeah, I don't know. There's too many like parts that if the beginning I give it a lot of grace, even though I didn't still the curse power system was
everything from the I think the Culling games was a dud. We can call that a failure of storytelling.
Again, fights were fire, but yes,
the fights were fire. Absolutely. A failure of storytelling. I think the Culling games just added an extra layer of confusion.
Because you didn't know they were like Culling games is not, it's part of the ritual, but it's a tournament, but it's not, but it ends when the mere fact you got to continue to change the rules. A game can evolve, don't get me wrong, but the continuing changing of the rules really, like,
I think the fact
now
that
you don't know what to believe. Yeah, now you don't.
Yeah, like it's like playing the game. It's like playing 21, and then it's kind of just like, well, actually, if 22? You're hooping with Jordans on, you start off with 15. Like it's
yeah. So it's to me,
but no, I think Culling games was a failure in storytelling. I will agree with that, and and I'll even agree with your statement of, this is a good story, but this is definitely not a pinnacle of storytelling. I think those are two different things. I think how you explained it was correct. I didn't say
it was a good story. I said it was an enjoyable story.
Okay, enjoyable, good, interchangeable words. If you enjoyed it, it was good enough. If you enjoyed it, it was good enough.
I enjoyed it. Yes, there's a part that is good enough. I guess good storytelling is what I feel like this actually lacks. Like,
and I still don't fully agree with that, but I get what you're saying. Because I think
you get what I'm saying, and you can understand why.
I think because when I did my chunk read, I started with the involvement of the U.S. military, and you kind of start to see of just like
that was a major part. I had it written down in my notes of like when things went sideways, and also things just weren't picked up. Like this is the first thing where humans were actually involved in it, and then suddenly humans were no longer involved in it. But were humans ever involved in this?
No, not really. But you also understand a Ghetto being like, "Hey," or Kenjaku just pretty much being like, "I'm only causing this extra layer of conflict so we have more cursed energy to expel when I do this merger. I only am allowing this military people because all that's gonna do is release more cursed energy. Because even explain at the moment of death, even if you're a non-sorcerer, you have cursed energy that is expelled. So he's like, why not get all these non-sorcerers into the calling games, into these areas, so we can kill them off, and then essentially increase the level of cursed energy that is in there. Cool.
Did he kill them?
Yeah, they died.
Did anything happen?
Because the merger didn't happen.
So
but the merger was like the merger was the ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
The merger was which wire do we cut? The red or the blue? We got 10 seconds.
We had this whole thing with the president and all these other things and all these other countries shit that didn't matter, bro. It didn't even matter.
It didn't matter because the plan stopped. It would have mattered if the plan came through.
Why didn't the plan go through?
Because they killed them. They won. That's why.
I'm so confused of why you bring in the story element that presents a risk that could happen to the characters, and then you completely, like, don't get me wrong, like, for instance, this is like Frieza's like, I'm gonna blow up the earth, you know what I'm saying? Frieza could at will just like fuck this, we're blowing up the earth. However, you introduce all these concepts, you play through all these games, you bring in all these characters, you introduce all these things, and then it eventually, now you just got reincarnated niggas just running around because what did the Culling Games do?
Yeah, and like I said, Culling Games was a dud. It fell flat. But everything from Kenjaku meeting with the U.S. government coming in, him going into Tengen's barrier, defeating Tengen, everything leading up to it, in reality, like, it all connects. It all kind of it all about. Granted, you could have put the puzzle pieces together in a different format to make it more understandable. You could have definitely, shifted some pieces around for sure. This was just bad, like, mapping. Like,
they had also this. It's a very, very small moment, but they had this moment where Geto's like, Kenjaku standing in front of Gojo right before he puts him in the prison realm, and like Geto's body just starts like freaking out because like Geto's like, he's still in there somewhere. It's like, I know you because souls don't do this and blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know, it's just never, to me.
Now, I mean, yes. Once again, there are little things like that we never go and revisit. We never revisit the fact that
there's definitely little things, but there's big things too. There's big things too in the story. I can't. We've read good. This is why I always come back to. We've read good stories.
We have. I'm not saying, like, we have read amazing stories. We have indulged in amazing stories. I'm not saying this is the greatest story ever told, but this is still a very, like, if I'm like, hey, you want to read a manga that is like really fun and really enjoyable and has a good story, and you can, like, I'm JJK, like,
I would tell someone
it checks more boxes than it misses.
Sure, I'm not going to tell people not to watch JJK or not to read JJK. I would just say the idea of it being a good, like, having good storytelling elements and storytelling things, to me, I can't fully commit to that because there's so many holes and things and frustrating points and all these other stuff that are like brought up and not established.
I'm telling you, it's one of those things.
It's enjoyable. It's enjoyable.
If you do a reread,
Turn your brain. No. I've read this millions of times. Trust me.
I
I've read
mean,
JJK
I don't know how
multiple
you
times.
can tell me, especially these final moments of just like, okay, this doesn't like,
It's enjoyable. I get it. I get it. Listen, the fights are enjoyable. These big moments and these characters are enjoyable. The story does not pass through all the tests, man. Like the actual storytelling elements and all the characters and bringing things full circle and having these having a starting, a climax, and exposition and resolution, that don't happen. The shit they tell you in fourth grade, the shit sometimes just be getting cut off somewhere. Someone's head gets cut off.
Really, okay. What is like the biggest what is the biggest non-closure did you not get from JJK?
Let's see.
If JJK was an X, what is the one thing you needed to figure out? Like, why didn't this work?
I mean, why didn't y'all gonna say, oh, you just wanted something to happen that didn't happen? Why didn't the plan that we're building up through more than half the story even begin, like, even add the threat for these people to overcome, including Sukuna? Like, Sukuna is good, but Sukuna's not or should not have been.
So are you more frustrated that Kenjaku's plan didn't come into full circle and they have to figure out, okay, this thing happened, how do we stop it?
I feel like they, especially towards the end, everyone's worried about Sukuna. I don't know where this cursed society curses. I want cursed society to be this. I think humans have more potential to be this, or all these other things that were introduced, these elements that are introduced throughout the story. I don't even know where it goes. Niggas just end the story. They beat Sukuna, obviously they do, and then they go back to their regular ass fucking lives. Like, it's all these things that were introduced that was part of the story.
So okay, I'm kind of getting what you're saying, is that you're not feeling that there is some type of lasting impact of, hey, we just went through this really traumatic thing that kind of shifts. It's starting to make everything you're saying. I'm starting to see your vantage point more, and I'm starting to click on understanding on what you were looking for.
I'm looking for.
And although it doesn't do that, I think just although it doesn't do that, doesn't make it bad.
If some other fucking show did this, you would be like, and it was terrible here. But I get it. I'm just saying, like, things that were, people going to debate me until like turning blue in the face. Of JJK fans going to debate me and like, oh, things did happen and all these things did happen, bro. What happened? What's thing in the beginning of the story? By the end of it, it does not matter, because at the end of it, they're just fighting Sukuna. It is a fight for survival. It is not a fight to save the world. It is not a fight to preserve.
Once again, it
preserve.
Is.
I mean, yes, it saves. Yes, of course, he's a threat to the world. Yes.
But no, but he literally, after Kenjaku died, he has the power to start the merger. So it really does.
But this isn't a clash of values in terms of like, we're trying to save this from this really, thing happening because we're trying to preserve this one thing. At the end of the day, you're trying to save the Earth from Sukuna. I fully get it. Sukuna is a major threat. But what's established in the beginning of this story, with all these characters and what they want to do and all these other things, like, to me, the story was like, also, you know what? I'm not even going to say that part, but just the beginning, it loses itself somewhere throughout the story. I think the plot is lost clearly at some point through the story, and we don't really recover it, but we get a great final ending sequence, is what I'll say. We disagree. We agree to disagree.
But like, I
see there's numbers. I'm not going to give it.
I don't disagree with you in terms of just like, oh, you're wrong, I'm right. Because I think you're making a very valid point of, yes, there are, I agree that there are some points where you're just kind of just like, okay, this doesn't feel as important as it was once made to seem. Or
Right.
this doesn't, or this thing kind of just magically just didn't matter anymore.
Right.
Um,
And there's great moments in between this. I think a lot of great moments. Kenjaku versus like Choso and Sumiki and all these other things. But there's so many things that like just to me just don't get follow up on. Nigga's head gets cut off, and suddenly now it's all up on Sukuna now. I think it was the villain throughout the story, the villain, and now Sukuna, who was like a part-time villain.
but I
You
don't
know,
even think Sukuna was a part-time villain.
he
Like
was
even
absolutely a
Sukuna was
part-time
just
villain,
like,
bro.
even when he took over Megumi's body, he was like, from the moment I saw him at the juvenile detention center, I knew that like I knew that I wanted his abilities. All I had to do was just wait for my moment in time. Like I just had to wait. And then it's because he's like, Yuji's spirit is too strong. I mean, like he even said, I need a vessel, not a cage. Yuji was a cage, not a vessel. And so it's like you kind of see he was just playing a long-term game in terms of that. I
But what
think,
did that have to do with the kind of like? What did him wanting Megumi's body have to do with the major values and huge clash within the story? It was very much like I
but
like
like
him.
but like it was never like Sukuna and Kujaku was always on the same team.
He wanted to revive himself, yeah, in a major way, even though he was kind of revived anyway. But
Yeah.
it's like
But like
him
it
and
was never
Kujaku.
like these two were just like, hey, we're on the same team. I got the same plan. I got the same this. It was legit. Their relationship was the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of ordeal. They both
Absolutely.
just wanted. They just both wanted these like these sorcerers gone. That's it. Hey, let's kill Gojo. Let's kill Yuji. Like that's where they had to agree it's upon. I think Kenjaku at the end of the day had his own plan, had his own chess pieces, had his own board that he was this game that he was playing, which added once again an extra layer of okay, it was kind of a race against time. Sukuna just so happened to fall into his plan of, hey, if the King of Curses comes back, all that really does is add an extra level of difficulty for these guys because they're gonna have to kill him. They're gonna have to defeat him while also simultaneously having to stop my plan, which was in motion. You saw every single moment in time where he was like, okay, I'm going to have this happen. I'm going to lock up Gojo. Boom, locked him up. Okay, cool. I'm going to get the calling game started so we can get all the sorcerers in one spot. Boom, calling games happen. All right, I'm going to now get a bunch of non-sorcerers to enter the calling games, to enter this place so I can get a massive amount of cursed energy. Okay, boom, this happens. All right, now let me go get Tengen, who we've already learned is like kind of like the he's the best. He's the one that's kind of holding this world on its balance. Let me go get Tengen so I could start this merger so I can pull out all this once the Conan Games ends and all these people die is going to release an enormous amount of cursed energy. And once that merger starts, like what is going to happen when we finally have this merger with all this cursed energy? Okay, boom, he does that. In case I die, in case I get killed, I'm going to pretty much put the red button in Sukuna's hands. He dies. What happens? The red button goes into Sukuna's hands. And Sukuna acknowledges the fact of just like, hey, I'm going to kill y'all. I'm going to
He
kill the rest of
becomes.
the
I
motherfuckers
mean,
here.
he gets included in the plan all later. Yeah, he's
Yeah, I
definitely
mean
included
later. And
within the
I
plan.
I say and it's like, okay, boom. Now,
But he's never part of the plan.
would I
He's
have
never.
liked a bit of more cohesiveness between them two to make it really feel that hey, they're in this together.
If Ghetto is if Kenjaku said part of my plan is also to revive Sukuna, then it makes a whole lot more sense. His plan was never to revive Sukuna. He, in fact, killed the person, killed the people, or also low-key kind of employed them or worked along with them. The people who wanted to revive Sukuna. But his plan was never to revive Sukuna. He was like, I'm the man, nigga. Now we changing the universe here. But I don't know. Let's because we got to wrap this up. I like JJK. With all that said, I still would recommend people watch it, but I'm just saying there's a lot of questions that can be had with this series as well. But it's an enjoyable.
I don't, and listen, this is, I would not say this series is some 10 out of 10. You know, like this is the perfect series. This is manga at its peak. I'm not gonna say that because to be fair,
I think for modern manga, it's still one of the
for modern day. Listen, for modern
it's still
day
one of
manga
the like
and for
pillars
modern day,
of modern manga.
For modern day manga and modern day shonen, what MHA and JJK have done for the genre is damn near unmatched. Those are two legendary things in my eyes. You really talk about things that have like really helped usher in where we're at in terms of popularity, in terms of visibility, in terms of how like anime now is a very forefront thing in media and all that. Those two play a huge role in it. In modernly, it will be looked at as one of it. Like it will be looked at as one of like the best for the modern era. Now, am I thinking all time as people who have been watching and indulging into anime for a very long time? Am I putting this on my Mount Rushmore? Probably not. There was definitely a moment in time where I would have, but in the full completed works, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, it definitely has its flaws. It definitely does some things where you're just kind of like, ugh. There are things that could definitely be better about this. But I'm also not in the same breath going to treat it as if it was some bum that just got some overrated praise and it was just madly overrated because of whatever. Because I don't feel that way either. I don't feel it was overrated at all. I feel that once again, this was a great story. And you even see it now because all these new mangas that come out are trying to replicate the same exact thing, the same exact formula that they're tried and it's not working.
All I'm gonna say here is you'll have to agree to disagree. It's not a bum thing, but it's got bum qualities to it. Either way, thank you guys for listening to us debate this for about 90 minutes or so, or an hour. Of course, you can follow us at the Lookout on RNC Radio, on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere where you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Let us, just hit us in the comments or like a video or anything of the rather. Again, next week we'll be covering the first episode of Don to Don and Blue Box. Following week we'll be covering the premiere of Dragon Ball Daima, and then in about a month we'll be covering Death Note for the first time on the show. So we look forward to being back. We're back. We're officially back in biz. If you have not already, please check out Plug and Play podcast with AD and Jay. And yeah, if you like this discussion, let us know where you fall on the, which side you fall on it. I know I'm gonna be on the hated side, but I just can't. Any final words, Jamal?
You know what? Here at the Lookout, regardless of debates, regardless of what we may say, I preach the fact of read what you want to read, enjoy what you want to enjoy, find the things that you enjoy. Hey, JJK, if it's not your cup of tea, cool. And if it is, awesome. Feel the same way about MHA and all these other things. There are like 3 probably animes where I'm just like, if you like it, you suck as a person. But man, listen, for us here, I think that we enjoy the journey. We enjoy the hunt, the finds, the scavenging. We want to find the things that we like, and it's also sometimes cool to find the things that you don't like also. but yeah, but y'all know where to find us. And like I said, like, let us know how you're feeling. Let us know what your thoughts are on it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time on the lookout.